Hi, I'm Caleb Bidoff, and I'm going to be telling the story, The Medicrin. I'm the bravest warrior, for I slew the monster of the Nordic lands. Have you heard the story, how I killed the Medicrin with my own 2 hands? Welcome to my village. I'm so pleased that you have come for a visit. What? What's a Medicrin, you ask? Judging by your curious lack of fur cloaks and helmets, I'm guessing you may not be from around these parts. Maybe not even from this time. Well then, gather round, for I shall tell you a tale of cunning and adventure unlike any you have heard before. Long ago, there were vile and nasty monsters that roamed my native land of Norway. In those days, a few brave, strong men, such as I, Eric the Brave, would make our living by protecting common folk, such as you, from the evil beasts. Now, our story begins in a small village surrounded by a shadowy forest just below the icy mountains. In these mountains there lived a dreaded monster called the Medicrin. Every Thursday, in the dead of night, he would slide down from the mountain, slip through the shadowy forest, and sneak into the village. Then he would snatch a sleeping villager and gobble him up. The villagers tried everything they could think of to catch the Medicrin, but he was too strong and clever for their tricks. One day I was riding through the village on my trusty steed, returning home from a bloody battle. As I rode, I sang to pass the time. They call me Sir Eric the Brave, and history one day will rave. I'm gallant and daring and noble of bearing, courageous and valiant, a mountain of talent, no wonder folks curtsy and wave. I'm Eric, Sir Eric the Brave. When the villagers heard my song, they approached me and offered to pay me a lavish sum to defeat the Medicrin. I agreed, and promised to devise a plan before the beast returned for his next meal. Now, you may have sensed that I am not just a handsome warrior, but also a scholar of incredible intellect. Before going to battle with a fearsome monster, I always did my homework, and so I consulted my copy of the Great Hero's Book of Terrible, Evil, and Vile Monsters. From my readings, I learned that Medicrins are the size of 10 tall men standing on one another's heads and have a wingspan the size of a Viking boat. I learned that they have 5 rows of teeth, each as sharp as daggers, beaks that drip with sticky snot that ensnares their prey, and sallow green skin that glows in the dark. I learned that they love to eat human flesh, and I learned that even more, they love to eat loons. So the next morning, I went out to find a loon. I searched high and low, near and far, and I finally found one just before breakfast. I captured it, tied it up, and brought it back to the village. Then I asked the villagers to dig a deep, deep pit to hold the giant monster. When they were done digging, I tied a rock to the leg of the loon so it could not fly away, and tossed it into the pit. Then I told the villagers to return to their homes, while I, Eric the Brave, waited for the monster. The Medicrin slid down from the icy mountain. It slipped through the shadowy forest, and snuck into the village. Then it sniffed the air. It smelled the loon. It crept closer to the pit, indecisively rubbing its claws together. Then it stopped. The monster also smelled danger. He began to run away. On his way out of the village, he snatched the sleeping villager and gobbled him up. The next morning, the villagers were not very happy. Some demanded their money back. Some thought that I should be thrown into the pit as bait for the Medicrin. After calming down the villagers, I again consulted my copy of the Great Hero's Book of Terrible, Evil, and Vile Monsters to learn more about my adversary. I learned that Medicrins wear the same underwear for 3 weeks in a row. I learned that they cannot sing at all, but enjoy listening to opera music. But most importantly, I learned that Medicrins love to eat sugar. So I immediately got upon my trusty steed and rode to the next town. I bought all the sugar at the market. I continued on my journey, buying sugar in all the neighboring towns, until it was time for the Medicrin's weekly visit. Upon my return to the village, I gathered all the sugar and tossed bag after bag down to the pit. The loon had not eaten in a week and was extremely hungry. As fast as I could throw the sugar down into the pit, the loon ate it up. Amazingly, the loon ate every single grain. "No!" I shouted as I beat my chest and threw my hands toward the sky. In a state of panic and horror, I searched my book for another plan. But it was too late. Night had fallen, and the Medicrin was approaching. The Medicrin slid down from the icy mountain. It slipped through the shadowy forest and snuck into the village. It sniffed the air. It smelled the loon. It came closer to the pit. It smelled the sugar. It teetered over the edge of the pit, indecisively rubbing its claws together. But then it stopped. The Medicrin also smelled danger. The Medicrin began to run away, but then he stopped. The smell of the loon and the sugar was just too overpowering for the Medicrin to resist. He turned around and dove into the pit. He never knew what hit him when I leaped into the pit and drove my sword into his neck. From then on, the village was never again troubled by harmful creatures. I retired from my life as a professional hero and began a quieter career as the local librarian with a specialty in monster lore. And if there is one thing I have learned from my adventures, it is this: a loon full of sugar helps the Medicrin go down. Tusen talk. Thank you.